Welcome in episode number 82, baby, of the St0ner Sports Radio podcast. We will be hitting up Week 7 college football review. Zach's going to speak on OU's loss to Texas in the Red River rivalry. We've got your NFL 2 minutes, quick hits, and we'll visit the sports book where we've got a first here, and we'll break it down for you. Once again, welcoming me from the Huffman Cave. Back in studio is friend and co-host Zach Huffman. Zach, how are we doing on this Be Happy Friday?
Well, you know, the worst thing that could have happened. You know, when we're talking about the most important game of the year for me personally, and if you'll notice, I'm not wearing any OU anything today. I can no longer support this team until I can see them score a touchdown. If they score a touchdown, I'll support them again. That's where I'm at. You and me might disagree on this. Luttrell has to go. I'm tired of him. I need him put on the wall and shot. Same with Joe John. Gotta go. It's time. Get him out of there. And if they're not out of there at season end, then Brent's got to be out of there. And that's just how it fucking goes. I'm tired of this shit. Tired of it. I'm tired of polar opposites. I'm tired of not having a defense. I'm tired of not having an offense. I would like, at this point, give me a mediocre offense and a mediocre defense, please. I'm tired of the ups and downs. I can't do it. Anyways, football is no longer fun.
That's fair. I think it's a fair assessment of what's going on down there in Norman. So let's get into it here, Zach. Big week upon us. Big time stuff happening all throughout the college football world last weekend. Let's come out and start in LA. Let's go out USC, Penn State. USC up big in this one, 20-6 at halftime. They get outscored 27-10 in the second half. They go into overtime. Penn State, goes ahead and picks off Miller Moss in overtime, and then just has to kick a field goal to win that game. I know you loved watching the BOTW lose another one.
Yeah, it's always great. It's always fun for me to see that happen, especially on such a sour weekend. It's always fun. I don't like the fact that he took Penn State that into OT. I would have rather Penn State blown them the fuck out, as you can tell by my picks.
Yeah.
And that did not happen. So Lincoln Riley fucks me again.
Yeah. In hindsight, it was a little bit of a fucking. You got the USC loss, but you didn't get it as big as you needed it. The spread on that game was 3.5, and Penn State wins that one 33-30. So a big bad beat on that one. So I feel you on that. But yeah, the biggest takeaway here was the tight end for Penn State, Tyler Warren, 17 catches for 224 yards and a touchdown. Give the man the Mackey already. Yeah, give him the Mackey.
Yeah, give it to him.
Yeah,
give it to him. The dude's elite. First round draft pick.
Yeah, he's a stud. He's a stud. So big ups to a guy that wears 44 on his chest. Out there at the tight end position.
Though,
it's
disgusting, isn't it? That little 44 on a tight end.
It's kind of gross. It's like, oh, the fullback's out there. The fullback's owning people. No, it's a tight end.
That number doesn't start with an 8.
Yeah.
Pissed off.
Yeah, they're gonna make it start with an 8 at the next level.
Yes,
so don't worry about that. Another big game over the weekend that ended up going into OT. Tennessee escapes Florida at home, 23-17. What is kind of your breakdown of Tennessee now? I mean, you've seen them in person. You've seen how they've, kind of, in my opinion, kind of degressed the last couple of weeks as far as their potency offensively. And again, you're talking about Nico only having 169 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. Is this Tennessee team overrated?
I think they're just in a little slump. When they played Oklahoma, I would say that I wasn't overly impressed on offense. They had a couple of big explosive plays that obviously Oklahoma wasn't able to match. But I think our defense played really well against Tennessee. I think you'd agree with that. And I think against a good defense, Tennessee can't do well. But this is Florida. I mean, Florida's not good. Well, I mean, we know this. Florida's not a good football team, really. So they have some guys. They have some big guys. They have some size. Maybe that was the problem. But I do think I have to agree that they're regressing a little bit. But I think it's just a slump. I don't think this will continue. I still think that they're they're still set to be a obvious playoff team.
Yeah, big game for them this weekend against Alabama. I'm sure we'll speak on that here later on in the show. But yeah, I mean, right now I wouldn't be super confident being like, oh yeah, Tennessee's got this one this week. I think they've definitely got some problems offensively if you're struggling to score the ball against a Florida team that's just horrendous. So that's that might raise some alarms a little bit. But we'll see if they can fix it. Not exactly all cupcakes and rainbows out there in Tuscaloosa. This game last week being a prime example. 27-25 escaping a frisky South Carolina team. They got the onside kick. They did everything right, Zach. And even on the last play where Sellers is heaving it up deep to try to win it with a Hail Mary, it gets picked off by an Alabama safety who almost took a knee in the end zone to put this thing into overtime. I mean, this whole game was a mess. Did you get to catch any of this? And if not, if so, what are your thoughts regardless?
Oh yeah, I definitely caught this. I caught this one, especially at the end. And like you said, when he almost kneeled down in the end zone, I was like, "Holy shit!" He almost just lost the fucking game right there. I mean, talk about bonehead move that would not happen under a Nick Saban-led team. Well, let's be honest. I know that this team, obviously has a lot to adjust to this season, but Jesus Christ, you lost Vanderbilt, and then you're putting up this kind of performance against South Carolina. It's just not Alabama standard, and I think that DeBoer knows that. He better hope he doesn't lose another game. He better hope that he beats Tennessee next week, especially considering Tennessee's slump as of late. Now, what this tells me is that South Carolina might be a little bit better than we think. And Sanders is elite, I think. He wasn't crazy this game, but against Oklahoma this week, I could see him. We kind of have a hard time stopping the run as of late. It feels like. So I'm not super confident. I think that reflects in the fact that South Carolina is a 1-point favorite right now. But yeah, Alabama definitely, in my opinion, not SEC contender. I'm probably taking Tennessee next week or this week.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is your quarterback play was not great, right? You had another interception in the end zone. You had some things, and Sellers was the top passer with 238 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, it's one of those things where a lot of people coming into that game were like, "Oh, the dude can't throw," and we still had people this week on local radio here in Oklahoma saying, "Oh, this guy can't throw, make him run." I mean, 2 touchdowns and 238 yards is better than anything your quarterbacks are putting up, and this is against Alabama's defense. I don't know if that really doesn't scare you if you're an Oklahoma fan heading into this weekend, but I think, like you said, it kind of speaks to Shane Beamer and what he's been able to do with this program. They're not complete scrubs. They're going to give you their all every single time you play them. The biggest shock to me was the onside kick. I mean, you had 5 crimson jerseys land on top of that spinning ball on the ground, and no one's able to grab it. I mean, that was where I was like, Nick Saban would have just cut that kid. I mean, there's no coming back to practice. Like, it's in your hands, it's spinning on the ground, you land on it, and when you land on it, it squirts out from underneath you. I mean, I just couldn't believe what was happening, and South Carolina almost pulled off what would have been amazing, which would have been back-to-back losses for Alabama against unranked teams, which I'm sure you would have to go way back to see something like that happening. Maybe even back to Nick Saban's first season in Tuscaloosa, where they were terrible.
Yeah, I would have to agree. That's probably the last time that has ever happened. And that's why I'm saying this Alabama team's not SEC championship material. I think we have obviously a bunch of other contenders in the SEC. We'll talk about
Yeah.
Texas and Georgia later.
Hmm.
That's obviously a huge game this week. So
Yeah, big one there for sure. Uh, Another game that went overtime. Tons of games went overtime last week, and it was fantastic to watch.
great, it was amazing,
Yeah,
great weekend.
yeah. LSU beats Ole Miss 29-26. This one again came down to turnovers, right? It came down to turnovers and just bad execution uh, from Ole Miss. Is Ole Miss kind of losing a little bit of faith from you, or is this one of those things where maybe the SEC, that the top 4 or 5 teams are just so good they're just going to cannibalize each other? I mean, is this one of those things where we could be seeing a little bit of that? I mean, how did this game speak to you?
I think that it speaks a little bit to that cannibalization that you're talking about. Obviously there can't be 4 SEC teams in the playoffs if one of them is 7-5. It's just not going to happen. I think that you have a lot of teams in the SEC that probably could get in with 8 wins based on their schedule. I think Georgia's one of those teams. I think Oklahoma's one of those teams that if they get 8 wins, that they have an argument for playoff. I mean, Vanderbilt, if they get 8 wins, they have an argument for playoff just based on strength of schedule. But these other teams like Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee, these teams, I don't think they can't afford to have more than 2 losses. So I think we're going to see a little bit of cannibalization. I don't. Do we get an undefeated team at the end of the season? I think the only possibility is if Texas beats Georgia this weekend, right? And then after that, it's kind of smooth sailing for Texas. As long as they can beat Vandy.
Yeah, and stay healthy, and stay healthy.
Yeah, and stay healthy. So I think this weekend is kind of going to determine the fate of the SEC, because obviously if Texas loses, they're probably not losing another game. So I think Texas is basically a lock for the SEC championship at this point, and it's really just a question of if Georgia picks up this next loss to Texas, right? Then do they lose again? And if so, does that keep them out of the SEC championship? To be honest, it depends on Tennessee, and that's. I mean, I think that's the conversation now: is Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, and Alabama's still there, technically. Um, LSU's still there for the SEC championship. I mean, it's iffy. I don't know which games we have lined up. I don't know who plays who anymore. I don't remember their schedules, but LSU is probably going to be the one that plays, that fucks around with something and messes shit up.
Yeah, I mean, they have to play Alabama at least, so I think that's one
Yeah.
one game you have circled there for the Tigers. But good win for them. Brian Kelly needed that. 2-0 in conference. You can't really complain with that as far as LSU is concerned. Ole Miss drops to 1-2. Can they rattle off, the rest of the season winning games? I think the answer is possibly yes, and I'll tell you why. Let's just take a gander here. I got it pulled up here. They've got OU next week.
When
Then they've got Arkansas,
when
and they've got this is the tough one. They've got Georgia at home, and then they've got Florida and Mississippi State to end it. So technically, in our opinion, you have one game on here that could be a loss, and it's Georgia, and it most likely will be. But I mean, that's the only roadblock they've
have
got.
3 losses.
Yeah,
They can't have 3
yeah,
losses in the SEC and get into that SEC championship.
yeah,
If they want to make the SEC championship, they have to beat Georgia.
yeah.
It's that simple. But just speaking on Alabama LSU again, that game is obviously probably the most important on Alabama's schedule now. I think you could assume that Alabama is going to beat Oklahoma, and then obviously this Tennessee game is a big one. And if Alabama loses this Tennessee game, then they have to beat LSU.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And if LSU can beat Alabama, then that's a serious situation where we're talking about LSU as a SEC title contender.
well, yeah, and Texas A&M at the top right now as well. You have to kind of think
Yeah,
about them
I
as
even
well.
forgot about Texas
so,
A&M.
so I mean, this is one of those things where right now the SEC ratings right now go Texas A&M, Texas, because Texas A&M has played one more conference game than Texas, so that's why they're ahead of them.
Yeah.
So Texas A&M, Texas, LSU, Georgia, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Alabama. So I mean, that right there is your top 7. Then it's Tennessee, Missouri, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. South Carolina, Kentucky, Auburn, and Mississippi State at the bottom there. So, I mean, right now, technically, like I said, Ole Miss is still in it, especially if Georgia uh, can beat Texas and then lose a game as well. I mean, there's a way that this could get pretty crazy. But then again, we know how this kind of breaks down. It happens to be like, how many points you scored against somebody and how what your ranking is currently overall. And then, they have ways of breaking these ties, but it could get a little hairy. Most likely it'll play itself out and we won't have as big of a controversy. But right now it's very interesting to watch. And this LSU Ole Miss game kind of fuels that fire to kind of have that discussion.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm really serious. LSU has that role to play of spoiler right now for the SEC, and they can really go in there and do some damage. And I don't think they're that good.
Yeah, I think they're above average. They're above average, and I think that's kind of where they lay. Another game that went into overtime. This was the last game that went into overtime. That was a top 25 game. Illinois over Purdue, 50-49. And this is interesting here, Zach, because Illinois was up 24-3 at halftime. And that's when Purdue decided to pull their starting quarterback and put in their freshman quarterback that had been sitting the bench all game. And the only thing he does is come out there and literally put up 46 points in the second half and overtime. So, safe to say that my Ducks and I aren't going to be as safe as maybe one thought, because this freshman quarterback apparently can sling it. Now, Illinois' pass defense is trash. I think you have to kind of point that out. But, being outscored 46 to 26 in the second half and overtime is not a good look for Illinois. But huge stuff there, and it was just an entertaining game. Lots of scoring there. The over definitely hit.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I'd be terrified if I were you.
Yeah, and not only did he have 247 passing yards, he had 17 carries for 118 yards.
297 passing yards.
Yeah, 297 plus 118 on the ground. So he's dangerous against a really bad defense. I don't think our defense is that bad. But it's something that's gonna be one of those things. I mean, we're already up 7-0, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. But it's one of those things. It's just one of those things where it's interesting to see teams make a change and have something like that happen, where you have an explosion of points like that. But overall, just an entertaining game. Pittsburgh beats California 17-15 in a snoozer. Pittsburgh scored all their points in the first half and scored none in the second half. So that game was watching paint dry boring.
Yeah.
Missouri blew out UMass 45-3. Had some hope there early in the first half of getting some points on the board there for UMass, but turnovers in the red zone prevent me from getting that done. Had a chance, I'm not even joking, for it to be 14-10 in the first quarter, and missed a field goal and a pick from the UMass quarterback ruined that chance there. Boise State rolls over the Rainbow Warriors of Hawaii 28-7. Another good game for Ashton Jeanty. 31 carries for 217 yards and 1 touchdown. If you're giving somebody the ball 31 times, you're really trying to get them to break every record known to man. I mean, 31 carries is a massive amount of carries, and it's the most amount of carries you'll see on this page of box scores that I'm looking at. No running back comes close.
Yeah, 100%. And I want to reiterate, and I've said this multiple times, this is the best college running back that we have ever seen. Anybody that is alive right now, this is the best college running back you've ever seen. And I'm going to say it right now, better than Barry Sanders.
Whoa, okay. I mean, it's a shame that not a lot of their games are televised. A bunch of them have been, but, it's a shame that not all of them are nationally televised.
When you compare the stats, when you are looking at the stats, Jeanty is on track to have a better season.
Yeah, I can't deny that right now, and we'll see if it continues. Like I said, he's got some games coming up that the defenses aren't going to be as bad. So we'll see how it goes. But right now, there's no disputing that at all. And Boise State continues to roll. They look, like you said, to be the Group of 5 team that gets in the playoff right now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Notre Dame blows out Stanford 49-7. This was kind of disappointing to me. in only one respect. I did pick the huge wide receiver for Stanford to have at least 41 yards receiving. I didn't realize their quarterback was Cheeks, so that's on me. You had to have someone to give you the ball, and ain't got nobody. So that game kind of went down the drain. Not really much to say about this one, Zach. I mean, this was just kind of Stanford's just bad.
Yeah, snooze fest, absolute snooze fest. You turn it off after the fucking second quarter. It's easy.
Oh yeah, cake. It's cake. Clemson blows out Wake Forest 49-14. Cade Klubnik 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, only 10 incompletions. I mean, he's looking like a New York City quarterback here, Zach. I mean, are we putting the cart ahead of the horse here, or is he really in consideration in your mind to be up there with Genty and maybe Dylan Gabriel or
Travis Hunter,
Ewers or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think he could be up there, especially, he's probably not going to go thinking about all the guys that can, because I don't know. The problem is, does Ewers go now after the injuries? Is he still New York eligible? I think so. If they go undefeated, I don't see any reason why Ewers wouldn't be there. But right now, it's looking like it's a race between Genty and Travis Hunter. So my vote would go to Genty. That's no doubt right now. So the other 2 slots there, you have kind of 3 guys battling for that. You got Dylan Gabriel, you got Quinn Ewers, and then I think you got Cade Klubnik. I think the dude deserves it over Quinn Ewers if we're talking about right now, just because of the injuries and Quinn hasn't played every week, and he is, we saw what this team can do with Arch Manning, so I don't see any reason why we should hold Quinn Ewers as especially valuable to that team. And you can see that Arch Manning comes in and that team looks just as good, if not better. So that's how I feel about the Heisman situation. I think right now, if I had to pick 4 guys, it would be Genty, Hunter, Gabriel, Klubnik in that order.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with that right now. But yeah, big win for Clemson. They continue to roll. No surprise, they get the W there. Moving on, Iowa State gets the win over West Virginia, 28-16. This game was close heading into the fourth quarter. It was 14-10 heading into the fourth. Garrett Green didn't have a terrible game. Rocco Beck didn't super impress me, but only 8 incompletions and 265 and a touchdown. So, efficiency really good there from Rocco. But overall here, Zach, I mean, is this one of those Iowa State teams where it's just like one of these weeks they're just not going to get it done?
Yeah, it's Matt Campbell. We know how this goes.
On the hot seat. Not anymore. Not anymore. He's doing pretty well since that incident. That's for sure. But no surprise really there. I kind of knew West Virginia would give them a little bit of a fight. I think those teams have some talent equivalencies on some different levels that kind of make for a bad matchup for Iowa State, and they were able to pull it out with 14 points in the fourth quarter, kind of put this thing to bed. But it was not easy for them, and I think that kind of speaks volumes of kind of where this team actually is.
Yeah, I think 100%. I agree with that, and I think this West Virginia team. I'm going to highlight them later when we're doing our picks. I just think that this West Virginia team is not what kind of the preseason hype kind of made it out to be, and I'm not impressed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super impressed. I'm impressed with the wardrobe, that's for sure. But I just haven't been impressed 100%. With the play on the field.
The coal mining uniforms are disgusting.
Nasty.
And I mean that in a good way.
Yeah, disgustingly good, just sick. So good stuff coming out of the uniform department from West Virginia. Just wish the look good, play good thing was applying right now, as Mountaineer fans probably hope for.
And listen, we care about the uniform situation here.
We
care about that. It's important. It's important to your brand in college football. I mean, this is why we focus so heavily on Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, it's how you it's eye candy. We're eye candy. Recruits like bright colors. Kids like bright colors. I mean, it's not new. We just we're using child psychology to get to young teenage men. That's all right. It's fine. Fine.
Perfectly fine.
Fine. It's fine. Taken out of context, that sentence is terrible. But anyways, a big win there for Iowa State. Georgia This Georgia-Mississippi State game got a little hairy. Zach, a little hairy, 41-31. 31 points against this Georgia defense. Jeff Lebby was cooking. And, I have to say, when quarterback for Georgia throws for 459 yards, 3 touchdowns, and you only win by 10, that says something about what the offense is doing on the other side of the field. And is Mississippi State finding an offense here, Zach? Is this something where it's like, your defense can't stop a nosebleed, but at least you're not losing by 40? I mean, what was this?
Do you remember when I used to complain about Jeff Lebby?
Yeah, I do.
I would do anything to have Jeff Lebby right.
Let Art Briles on the field as many times as you want. Come back.
Please come back. I really don't give a fuck. Just score a touchdown.
Just score a
touchdown. I think you're right. Like this Lebby offense is just it's starting to hum. It's starting to hum, and I think Mississippi State's going to be a team that's possibly even gonna threaten some teams heading down late into this season.
Yeah, you look at kind of how their season has progressed here as far as offensive output, and look, you start out with a 56-point output against Eastern Kentucky. No one's surprised there. The loss to Arizona State on the road is kind of strikingly bad. If you look at that, 23-30 is not a bad loss, but Arizona State's not good, and neither is Mississippi State. I'm not saying they're good. I'm just saying, like, from a perspective of putting up 56, you out and only put 23 against Arizona State, not great. You lose to Toledo and only put up 17 points, and you get blown out 41-17 by the Rockets. Oof, that's bad. But here we go. 28 points against Florida. That's a pretty decent output. You still lose 45-28, but again, offense, more output, right? Texas, lockdown defense, no shot, only 13 points. No surprise there. Texas is good. We're not going to talk about that. Georgia, though, 31 points. You have Texas A&M, Arkansas, UMass, Tennessee, Missouri, and Ole Miss. Those last 3 games are a brutal last 3 games. But these next 3, especially this Texas A&M game this weekend, don't sleep on the Bulldogs because they might jump up and bite this Texas A&M team. I don't know how much faith I have in Texas A&M defensively after what I've seen against Arkansas and other teams these past weeks. It's been slugfests for the Aggies, and I think that you look at the way that Texas A&M is playing right now, and it doesn't really lean into the whole like, oh, this team is okay. It's one of those things where they're on the fringe of doing something stupid. And I get that you blew out Missouri last week. Fantastic. Who knows how good Missouri is anymore? I don't know. I don't have a gauge on them anymore. So I don't really know what to think about that. This is going to tell me a lot because they've got LSU next week, and then they've got South Carolina, New Mexico State, Auburn, and they finish the season with Texas. So Texas A&M, this is a big game for them this weekend.
Yeah, 100%. I almost forgot that there are 2 Bulldogs in the SEC because when you said the Bulldogs are about to play Texas A&M, I was like, you're talking about Texas.
Yeah, that's how bad Mississippi State is. that just speaks to it right there.
Georgia has Georgia's. When you say Bulldogs, I just automatically think about Georgia. It doesn't help that we're talking about the game they played each other. So.
Yeah, it doesn't help. Yeah, no, I'm not helping with my convolution of words here. But anyways, Georgia survives that game. I don't know how you would describe that, but they get the win, and I think that Georgia fans were a little bit upset with the way that one went, considering how much they were favored going in there.
Yeah, the fact that you had to score points in the second half to win the game is bad for Georgia.
Yeah, but great for Jeff Lebby. That's a game that your AD is watching, going, we're almost there. That's
an extension game. That's an extension game right there.
Yeah, that's an extension game. So good for Jeff Lebby, kind of solidifying himself and cooling that seat a little bit after a rough start for him. BYU blows out Arizona 41-19. Did we think Arizona was just going to be this bad? Because I think the bigger surprise is how good BYU's been.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger thing is how good BYU's been. This team, they're pre-gaming with milk, and they're getting out there and going crazy. They're making these BYU fans think about drinking coffee. Just stay awake and cheer for their boys.
Yeah, and I've seen those YouTube interviews. They asked a guy last week on campus, would you rather be actively enlisted in a war where you're going to get, action, or would you drink a cup of coffee? He said, sign me up for the military. I said, wow. So if you're making them drink coffee, that's pretty strong stuff, because these people are willing to go out and die for their country over taking a sip of that coffee bean. So
yeah, but it's okay because they're going to lose tonight.
Oh, wow. It's wrangle time, eh? We're wrangling up some Cougars, eh? All right. I like the thought. I like the thought. That would be definitely interesting. That game kicks off
Yep, and it's still their rank.
9:15. That's a late one. That's a late one. The chocolate milk might be flowing in this case, kind of get that
Uh-oh.
extra boost. And just for your information, folks, BYU is 24-3 in their last 27 home games at night. So good luck, Oklahoma State.
I
Good.
think that they're going to get the spark they need, and they're going to go in there and eat some fucking cougar tail.
Hey, I mean, hey, those cougar tails are massive. Those things are huge. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, those are that's
Get RG3 on one of those babies.
yeah, yeah, give RG3 one of those babies. Make a
Yeah,
croissant two egg. Oh yeah, there you go. um, but yeah, no, a good game for BYU and Arizona. I mean, what like I said, what do you think about Arizona? Is this one of those things where it's like Big 12 now definitely out of play? I mean, they're 1-2 in the Big 12. I mean, I think 2 losses is still enough to keep you in the conversation at this point, considering the future of some of these teams at the top. But I mean, can Arizona pull off enough wins the rest of their schedule to make a push for this? Because when you look at their schedule, when you talk about the Wildcats, they've got Colorado this week. They've got West Virginia, UCF, Houston, TCU, and Arizona State to end. Colorado seems like the only game there that really scares me when it comes to Arizona playing any of these teams. It looks like they should win, the next 5, 6, or 7, or 5 or so of the one. Yeah, next 5 out of 6 they should win.
Yeah, and they're going to have to win out if they want to have a chance at making this conference championship game, because I just don't think they can at this point. I don't think they're good enough. I don't think Colorado even. So, um, yeah, they probably end the season with 5 wins, but that Colorado game, no.
All right. I just wanted to see your thoughts on that. And that leads us to the last 2 games here, or last couple games here. We have still the Kansas State-Colorado game to talk about here. Kansas State with a 3-point victory for Colorado, 31-28. Took some last-second heroics to get that one done. What were your kind of takeaway from this kind of late night special out there in Boulder?
I think it showed that Colorado is a little bit better than maybe we've given them credit for. They did this against a really good team, and I think that they have a shot to be in this Big 12 championship. And I think Kansas State's probably the other option there, along with BYU at this point. So I think that this was a big game in terms of
Texas Tech,
Big
baby.
12
Let's go.
championship. This was a big game in terms of Big 12 championship implications.
No,
I'm glad
it's
that Kansas State came away with it.
yeah. I mean, I think everybody's kind of in consensus on that one, and that leads us to the last 2 games. I'll go first here. Oregon survives Ohio State 32-31. Time was ticking down. Ohio State's in field goal range. They continue to pass the football and get an offensive pass interference call, backing them up, and then a couple incompletions later, 6 seconds to go, Will Howard says, "I'm going to do this myself," and just forgets that, sliding still makes the clock run, and I don't know how long 6 seconds is, and the time runs out, game over, and the Ducks survive a thriller in Autzen Stadium. Fans all over the field, Dan Lanning fist pumping like he's Donald Trump after an assassination attempt. I mean, it was a massive, massive night for the Ducks. And this was just a great game to watch. I mean, look, actively
Amazing.
watching it, I was literally gonna kill myself. But I mean, looking back on it and knowing the results makes you feel a lot better about watching those highlights. And makes it feel a little good. Makes it feel good.
Yeah, I'm happy for you. It was an amazing game, and I wish I could have some shared joy with you, but my day was obviously ruined. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this Oregon Ohio State game was amazing, and I obviously thought that Will Howard was playing fantastic up until that point. Yeah, bonehead move. I mean, just bonehead move. You got it. I mean, can't slide down there.
Well, I just think it's just stupid that they were in field goal range and you decide to continue to pass it. Like, just run the football. I mean, I guess they just. I mean, when you're in a rhythm, I guess and the offensive PI call was weak. It was weak. It was like yeah, the dude's 3 inches shorter than the wide receiver. He gets shoved. It's offensive PI, but it's like that doesn't get called like 90% of the time. But at the same time, why are you throwing the football? Just run it up the middle, center your kicker, and get out of there with a 2-point win and have me be shattered I'm glad it happened that way, but confidence wise for me, it was like one of those things where it's like we didn't really have that in control there. It wasn't like it didn't feel like it. It was definitely the Bane. So do you feel in control meme? Like it was that. It's like I didn't really, not really.
Did Ohio State have a timeout?
They they uh they they did. They had one left in their pocket. And I think the goal that he thought was I'm gonna take off and I'm gonna slide and we're gonna call timeout with a second left and we're gonna run the kicker on there. And I think he just took too long. They did have one timeout left.
Yeah, yeah. Just took too long. All right, that's my question because I'm thinking, here's the thing. I actually have no problem with the pass because you're already in field goal range, and I'm okay with that. If you don't gain any yardage on the play, it's okay as long as you don't lose any yardage and you don't lose the 6 seconds. You got to make sure you have at least 1 second on the clock just to snap the damn ball. But that ball either needs to go out of bounds or it needs to go in the end zone. I mean, those are the two options that you have in that scenario. It's either, or actually, here's the thing with the timeout. It needs to go either up the middle extremely quickly to a wide open receiver, or it needs to go out of bounds. We're talking about getting just a little bit closer to field goal range. We're not. If I'm Ryan Day, I'm not going for a touchdown there. I mean, you can win the game with the field goal. You just try to get a little bit closer. Slant route up the middle with your slot seems like an easy enough, quick decision. Call a quick timeout. I don't see why you don't do that. Holding the ball is the most bonehead move that you can
Yeah.
do
I
because even
mean
if you get
that
sacked, you
was
still
that
have a
was the
chance,
big
right?
thing. Yeah, that was the big
If you
thing.
get sacked, you still have a chance. But holding the ball and letting the time run out just completely destroys your ability to kick the field goal, and that's the winner right there. And I think that Will Howard thought that he had more time than he did. He didn't count to 6. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah, I mean he spent 4 seconds in the pocket before he took off, and
You
that's
just got to
just
throw that ball. You
yeah,
just got to throw that
yeah,
ball out of
yeah.
bounds.
The internal clock was not working right there, and the other thing that was genius was Dan Lanning getting that 12 men on the field call to with 40 seconds
Yes.
to go. Clock starts running after the after the uh, penalty is assessed because it's a live ball foul. So that and like I said, you had Ryan Day with a timeout. But at that point, I think he was still feeling like, okay, we're still in field goal range. They were still in field goal range at that point. So let's throw that out there. They were on the verge. They were on the verge. It was second and 25, and then it was third and 20 after the timeout. After the penalty, it was third and 20 because 5-yard penalty. Clock starts running. He's wondering why it's running. Will Howard is standing there waiting on everybody to get set to snap the ball. Snaps it with 10 seconds to go. Throws a route to the near side, incomplete, stops the clock with 6 seconds, and that's where we get the last play of the game. So, and like you told me the next day, they changed the rule pretty fast.
Yeah, they changed the rule. I think it's bullshit that they changed the rule. I think that that's a good, smart move to make in order to stop, in order to force another play, right? Because obviously the only reason that Dan does that is because it prevents Ryan Day from running the clock down to 1 second and just calling a timeout and kicking the ball from there. Because, like you said, they're in field goal range. So by
They
forcing
were
them
at the
to,
40. They were at the 40, so it wasn't field goal. The penalty had
yeah,
taken them
I
from
get
the
it.
30 to the 45, and then the 5-yard penalty moved it up to the 40. So that's why they couldn't kick the field goal with 6 seconds left or whatever, was because their kicker can't hit a 57-yarder. There's never Aubrey ain't trotting out there for them. Like it's their kicker's okay. I think as long as 51, they had to get all the way to the 37, so they needed still only 3 yards. Well, wait, am I right about that? No, they needed 9 yards, right? Nine or 10 yards. I mean, and Will Howard maybe picked up 6 on that slide. I mean, you would have still probably been throwing that ball into the end.
I don't know about that. I think you still go for that kick
Yeah.
from 57. I think you give your kicker a chance there. I mean, I think you have to. I'd trust that more than an end zone pass. But I mean, I think the problem is Dan Lanning was trying to force the ball to stay in bounds so that clock kept running in order for them to not be able to get a field goal off. And I think that he did a fantastic job. I'm sure that happened. He prevented Ryan Day from, either getting that ball with 1 second left in a stopped clock with the timeout, stopped him from being able to, just run, or he stopped him from being able to score in that situation. And that's the best thing you can do, because if you can keep them from in the end zone and you can keep them inbounds, then it's a rush to the line of scrimmage, and they didn't even get the chance to do that because Will Howard's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Even if he goes down with 3 seconds left, right? He goes down 3 seconds left. They have 3 seconds to get to the line and spike it.
Well, they have a timeout.
Well, yeah, they have a timeout.
Yeah. So you could have stopped it. Like if he would have gotten down quick enough. Yeah. So I mean, the problem was I don't know if he got far enough for him to feel comfortable about that. But like you said, I don't think you have a choice. I think you have to trot him out there and just see, hey, if you miss it, you miss it. It looks like the kick against Ohio State, or that the Ohio State had against Georgia in the playoff, where it just goes way out to the left and have a chance. So be it. But at least you tried. You didn't even get a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that if you decide that you're going to throw the ball there from 57 yards to try to get in the end zone, I'm dropping 10.
Yeah. You dropped 8. There you go. That was,
like I will dead ass drop 10 in that situation.
And the thing is if, and I think the reason they didn't was because they were like, he can still take off. And he did take, and he had some room, just didn't get down quick enough. So the Ducks survived. They are now your number 2 team in the country, and a big win there for the Ducks. Here's one game we didn't really talk about. I'm going to squeeze in here. Arizona State beats Utah 27-19. Cam Rising comes out of his shell and tries to perform and throws for 200 yards and 3 picks. So didn't get the job done there. Utah loses, and Isaac Wilson has been named your starter for the rest of the year. Rising is exploring his 8th year red shirt because he hasn't played that many games this season. He's also got a 9th year COVID year he can still use as well if he wants to do that. So tons of stuff happening there for him. But as far as Utah is concerned, 1-2 in the Big 12 is not where you want to be right now. Doesn't take you out of the discussion, like we said, but it definitely puts you on the fringe of losing that discussion. I don't think Utah's good enough to be in that discussion anymore with Isaac Wilson as their quarterback. So I think their season as Big 12 champion contenders are effectively done. So you have Utah done and Oklahoma State already done, and we're not even to week 7 yet. So or to week 8. So that's a rough as far as how that conference looked heading into the season, to have your top 2 picks people had to win the Big 12 not even be in contention at this point.
Yeah, just terrible.
Just terrible. So that leads us into the game of the week for you, Zach. Red River rivalry. Texas beats OU 34-3. No touchdowns for the Sooners. No points after the first quarter for the Sooners. They were winning after the first quarter, 3-0, if you want to turn the game off then, just to preserve some confidence. But this thing got ugly real quick. Some turnovers, back-to-back fumbles, and both by freshmen. Tatum fumbles right after Michael Hawkins fumbles, and it kind of just started unraveling once Texas had those short fields to work with. And the discussion started to happen at halftime if Jackson Arnold may come back into the game. The commentators were talking about it. Several people locally that are on radio were thinking about it on their couches. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Brent throws him back out there, considering how bad this is going. But Brent at halftime told everybody, look, we're staying with Michael Hawkins. We're going to let him finish this thing out, which I think kind of speaks volumes. But also I think it's because they're not sure whether or not Jackson wants to redshirt or not. Brent says he's had that discussion with Jackson in private, and that decision's already been made. So we'll see if he even takes another snap, because that's all he needs to do is take one snap in any of these games the rest of the season, and there's no chance he can redshirt. So that's kind of one of those things where it's like, we'll kind of see what happens tomorrow, because if things start going south in that South Carolina game, I think that you might, will you see Casey Thompson? I don't know. I don't know if that's something that's on the table right now. No one's even kind of mentioned that, because they were like, well, if you were going to put a backup in and you didn't want it to be Jackson, you would have put Casey in, and he would have been the first OU quarterback in the history of the school to be a quarterback and play for both sides of Texas and OU in that game as a viable part. So that could have been historic. Obviously not really the big point there, but just throwing that out there as kind of a side little tidbit there. But things are kind of not looking so great, and questions are starting to become whether or not both of these guys stay, both of them go. People are saying that Jackson should just go into the portal and take Dave Portnoy's $5 million to become Michigan's quarterback, because Dave Portnoy is offering $5 million to the top transfer portal quarterback to come to Michigan. So if he wants to get that money, he would definitely be the top quarterback in the portal if he were to leave. Michael Hawkins can't say that. He doesn't have that kind of pedigree. So there's definitely that option for Jackson if he wants to go up there to Ann Arbor. I'm sure that he would love to take that money from them and possibly steal that from Michigan. Don't know if he would actually be an effective quarterback. Well, we don't know because the offensive line's so bad. You don't have anybody to throw to. You don't have a running game to take relief off of anybody because the offensive line's so bad. Seth Luttrell can't even run a decent offense because he has no idea what to do, because he can't even get the ball into his best player's hands because he doesn't have them on the field. Your best player on the field is your quarterback, and you can't run quarterback draw every play when they're double spying you and stacking the box. So it forces your hand. Creativity goes down the window, and things just start unraveling. So that's just kind of my two thoughts on it. Go ahead and do your stuff, my man, because as far as I'm concerned, it's not looking good, and I think you might lose both these guys.
This is the moment that I say that I think that we're probably going to go 5-7 to finish this season. I just think that this team isn't good, and I think that injuries has a lot to do with that. But I think the biggest issue isn't the fact that we have five receivers, our top five receivers, out for every important game that we've played. Even Tennessee, we had 3 or 4 of them out. I mean, it's just bad luck mixed with the fact that we have one of the worst schemes I've ever seen and one of the worst offensive lines that I've seen in a long time from Oklahoma, which is causing us to not be able to run the ball. And once you're not able to run the ball, you become a very predictable and very easy to defend team, which is why we've just had so many fumbles. We've had so many behind line of scrimmage calls because it's easy to cover OU right now with the fact that we don't have a rush. I think one of the biggest issues that we saw in the OU Texas game, especially, obviously after the first quarter, I was feeling okay because Quinn was playing like trash, and I thought our defense was doing a good enough job, and I thought that we'd be able to get more field goals. I thought if we can get 15 points on field goals, then we might be able to win this game on the backs of our defense. But it didn't happen because we couldn't get down the field after that first drive. That means that we're not able to make adjustments to defense, because I think the easiest time for any team to score is on their first drive on offense. When you plan that drive out, the other team doesn't know what you're going to come out and do. It's the easiest drive to score on, and obviously we score on that one, right? And we get 3 points and we don't score again after that because they'll adjust it after that first drive and we don't know how to adjust back. And I think that's a problem with the fact that Luttrell is calling the plays, not making any adjustments. I don't know what Joe John Finley's doing, because I don't even think he calls plays at this point. I think he's just offensive coordinator scheme wise that helps out behind the scenes, but he's not calling the plays. I don't know if maybe we need to switch those duties up. Does Joe John need to be calling the plays now? Personally, I think you just hand the reins over to Emmett Jones and let him call the plays. But it's not a good offensive situation on both staff and roster right now. Not to mention the fact that all the injuries are terrible. But I think you've said multiple times, and I'm starting to agree with you, that I think Bill Beanbo has to get his shit together in terms of this recruiting, because the offensive linemen that we're fielding out there, while they may be good for the fact that a lot of them are 3-stars, we're not getting size out there. And I think that we can both agree that the biggest reason that a lot of these guys get 4 or 5 stars when they're coming out of high school as linemen is not because they're extremely talented, which a lot of them are, but it's because they're 6'5" and 375 pounds. I mean, that's why they're 5 stars. That's not to say that they're not good football players, but I mean, that has so much to do with it, especially when you're talking about the SEC moving on to the next level in the NFL. And we're not getting the big guys. We're undersized on the offensive line. And I think that has a lot to do with why we're getting injured. We're just getting beat off our first pull on the O line, and it's just causing issue. Obviously, if you don't have a good O line, you're not going to have a good offense at all. Because if you don't know, I mean, I hate to say this, but I mimic a Lincoln Riley conference where he was talking about play action and how important it is to have the play action arsenal ready to go for any offense. And if you can't run the ball, then you're not able to get play action passes, which means that you are a predictable team. It's very easy to tell if a team is going to run or pass, but it's not easy to tell if a team is going to run a play action, if they're going to hand the ball off or not. That also helps with option plays. So if you don't have an offensive line that's able to get you a run game that's convincing enough for the defense to want to defend the run, then you're not going to be able to have a passing game either. The defense is expecting a pass every fucking time. Obviously, with Oklahoma, I think the problem is that we're we don't have a run game, but we're calling run plays anyways. We do not have a run game, and then first and second down are runs every time, and then it's third and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and we're having to get passes that we aren't able to get up the middle because we don't have our top 5 receivers out there. Our wide receiver 6 is being defended by the other team's, DB1, and that's just not something that we can sustain as an offense. And obviously, I think this is something that I really wanted to bring up, and we talked about a lot. I think NIL has so much to do with this, and you brought it up. I think specifically regarding the depth question of if a team is able to get guys that are 2, 3 levels deep in each position with NIL now, because you're not able to pay that many guys. You're not going to be able to pay a 4-star coming out of high school to sit there and be your wide receiver 6 for a year, because you have to pay the 4 guys that you're going to play every drive. So I think that has a lot to do with the start differences between OU and Texas right now, NIL wise, because relative to the rest of the field, both of these teams have unlimited resources almost to be able to go out there and get whoever they want. Any of these blue blood programs can go out there and get anyone they want because they have the money, they have the resources, they have the outreach to do so. But you're limited now on the amount of people that you're able to pay on your roster, and convince them to come spend a year and not make a ton of money, and be a backup option for you, because you can't do that anymore. You're not getting guys based on development and getting ready for the NFL. You're getting guys that are thinking, I might get hurt 2 years into my college career, and if I don't make some money, then it doesn't matter, and I'm not going to get drafted either way. So a lot of these guys are going where they make money first. You're not getting the depth that you needed at a lot of these skill positions. So that's the big difference between OU and Texas. OU is injured, and you're seeing a lot of these backups come in that aren't nearly as good as you would expect an Oklahoma backup to be, because obviously you're thinking of Oklahoma backups that were on the team back when it was more for NIL. You had Hollywood Brown playing sitting back, I mean, for a couple of games, and then he breaks out. You have CeeDee Lamb sitting back for a couple of games. You don't get that these days, because if we're not going to be able to pay guys like CeeDee Lamb 40 grand to come and be our backup, in case one of our top 4 gets hurt. It's just not realistic. It's not going to happen. Texas, on the other hand, they're extremely healthy right now outside of Quinn Ewers, and
and their running backs.
Where you have the most resources to dedicate. And Arch Manning, I'm pretty sure, makes more than Quinn Ewers NIL wise, and that alone shows that you can have that depth at the quarterback position. I think OU does have that depth at the quarterback position. I think both of us can agree now that Michael Hawkins Jr. and Jackson Arnold are both good to great quarterbacks. And the fact that they don't have an offensive line, the fact that they have the receivers because of injuries, I think has a lot to do with that. Texas, like I said, on the other hand, they spend a ton of money. They get a ton of really good guys on the roster, and they're not really having a ton of health issues. So they are having a fantastic season. I mean, I'm a firm believer that if you put OU's first team, no injuries, out there against a fully healthy Texas team, it's probably a much different outcome.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think like I said, I mean that's I think that's the big thing, is you can't have a $20 million bankrolled roster. It's just not possible. It's just you can't. I mean, if you you could raise $22 million and play your starting guys, and backups, 500 grand a pop, if you really want to start bankrolling national championships, but I don't think anybody in their right mind is putting that kind of money forward right now. Not to say it's impossible. I'm not saying that, somebody, rich as hell couldn't just decide to throw some money out there and see what happens. But I think this is a good example, like I've said before, of just how this is changing the game as far as depth goes, and you're seeing it rear its ugly head. But what are your thoughts on the quarterback situation specifically here? Are we leaning towards being able to keep both of these guys for you? Are we looking at both of these guys potentially leaving? Maybe like I said, due to enticing NIL offers as far as Jackson Arnold may be concerned. Because I think if we're seeing these things, and most people are seeing these things, now, I can't say people are analyzing it correctly, because I think a lot of people are wanting Seth Luttrell's head and Joe John's head and Venable's head, and they're like, fix it now. Fix it. This is not a fix it now problem. You can't fix any of this right now. And I think that's where the impatience of Oklahoma fan base kind of gets in the way of their own success sometimes, is because it's like, we don't live in a time now where you can just fix these things overnight. You realize what the problem is? I mean, these people are brain dead. They think that, like you said, these freshmen waiting in the wings that are supposed to be these 4 or 5-star offensive linemen that they haven't even put out there for a single snap. Why would you not put them out there, Bill? If they're so damn good, what's wrong with them, huh? You're telling me they're not good enough? Like these, like you said, 2, 3-star, portal transfer starting offensive lineman. I mean, you had a guy starting for LSU on this offensive line. Don't know how that happened, but he's definitely not carrying whatever side of the line he's on, because there ain't no holes to run through on any side of the line. Nobody's getting a push. Nobody's doing what they're supposed to do. And like I said, what do you expect when you bring all these guys in from the portal, from the Sun Belt, from Conference USA, from the American Conference? Sure, they're starting for those teams. They're doing good things for those teams, but look at their competition. Look at who they're playing, and look how they're performing, and look at the size of the guys they're going up against on a week-in to week-out basis. You can make yourself look decent. You can make yourself look like you can probably hold your own for a couple series in the SEC to get the ball moving. No, these guys aren't good enough. They're just not good enough, and it's bad talent eval by Bill Bedenbaugh, and it's such a rare bad eval by him. Oops, sorry. So it's such a bad random evaluation, like, from him, because he's been so good for so long, that it does kind of concern me. It's like, is he losing his mojo? Like, what's going on? When in reality, I do think what you're wanting to have happen is kind of happening, where these freshmen are sitting. And I think Bill is saying, look, I mean, you see how this is going. We're not going to throw you out there yet, but are you going to be able to keep these 4-star guys that have been sitting all season if you don't even give them any reps at all? That's what I'm saying. I think that's the biggest problem, is if you're not giving these guys reps, what have you done to convince them, other than being like, you're going to be the guys next year? Like, you're going to be a part of this new group coming in. Because and I know for a fact, that 90% of what we're seeing on this offensive line, as far as names on the back of the jerseys, are going to be gone. They're not going to be there. So that's what you have to be telling them, I think, if you're Bill Bedenbaugh or Brent Venables, to try to keep them around, is, look, you've signed some other guys a couple weeks ago that are supposed to be big offensive linemen. You're signing good recruits, which is good, because obviously you need them. But I think the big thing has to be convincing these big-time recruits that, yes, it's going to be better next year. I promise it will be better, and we will be better. And I think if you can fix the offensive line, and like I said, you're not going to fix it this season, you're not going to fix it this week, it's not going to get any better. But if you can fix it next season and in the offseason, I think that will redeem a lot of the bad stuff that we're saying about Bill Bedenbaugh, because there hasn't been a lot of bad things to say about him. And I think that because he's been so good for so long, people are afraid to kind of put his name out there as he's kind of the reason this shit's kind of going down the drain. But it's kind of blatantly obvious that now, because of the receiver injuries, you are forced to be in this position where you can't really point fingers at the wide receiving core, because like you said, how are you going to get separation on a slant route against DB1 when you're wide receiver 6? If you're not getting separation against our DBs in practice, what makes you think against an SEC cornerback you're going to get separation? I mean, it's just, that's why the slants are being ran. That's why the drags aren't open. That's why coverage is always locked up. That's why Michael's sitting back there for 6 seconds, because no one's able to get open. Nobody. I mean, the tight ends can get open sometimes. We've seen that when you have faux block and you slip them out. That's been one of the most successful passing plays you guys have had, is when these tight ends get loose. but they can't block anybody. These are receiving tight ends strictly. Your tight ends can't block worth a damn. I've seen it firsthand. Replays on run plays that don't go anywhere. You have your tight ends who are sometimes lined up in the backfield with your halfback, not picking up blitzing linebackers on the outside that are just running into the backfield. Who are you supposed to be matched up against? We don't need two guys on the left defensive tackle. Like, we need somebody to pick up this linebacker. What the hell are you doing, Sharp? What are you doing, Roberts? Like, what are we doing? Like, it's amazing to me to either we're not getting assignments done right, or we're just not, the blocking schemes are fucked. And people have said, well, simplify it. If these Neanderthals up front don't know what their blocking assignments are, just have it be whoever's right in front of you. That's it. And then have the guys behind them, like the tight ends and fullbacks, try to pick up the spares. But it's like, obviously, that's not what's happening, because nobody's picking these guys up. You're just like having guys run free into the backfield on these running plays. It's just ridiculous. And so what do you want them to do? Well, let's try to run a halfback screen. I haven't seen a lot of halfback screens. I've seen those wide receiver screens or the long swing pass screens where you're supposed to get some space in the open. But if your wide receivers can't get separation, what makes you think they're going to be effective blockers on the edge? You can't even get your wide receivers to block because they're not supposed to be blocking wide receivers. They're supposed to be on the bench not doing anything. I mean, there's a reason why it's so bad. So to come after Seth Luttrell and to come after Joe John Finley, in my opinion, is kind of ridiculous. Because, like, what do you want them to do? Like, at this point, just run quarterback sneak every play and just punt. I mean, fuck it. Just go out and punt on first down. I mean, if it's really that bad, because I don't know what you want them to do. I mean, I think deep shots are the only thing you've got. Is just release these guys like Zion Reagans, who's supposed to be your speed guy. Release him down the edge and just have Michael Hawkins just launch it, man. Because, I mean, he got one completion in that Auburn game, ended up changing the whole entire face of that game. We haven't seen a deep ball being connected since.
Yeah, I'm going to push back a little bit on the Luttrell, Joe John Finley thing. I think because yes, like obviously it's hard to call this offense because of the fact that you don't have a run game, because of the fact that you don't have, an offensive line that's able to create a run game to create an effective passing offense. Not to mention the fact that the top five wide are all out and not able to get open, but I still think that there are just better calls to be made. And my issue isn't the fact that the offense hasn't been successful under Luttrell and Joe Finley. It's that they're not trying to win games, no matter like they're more scared of getting turnovers than they are of winning football games. We're down 3 touchdowns to Texas, and you're calling 3rd and 9. You're calling a wide receiver screen because you think that that's our best opportunity to get 9 yards. Obviously, we're not going to get 9 yards off those. We haven't gotten 9 yards off those calls all game. What I'd rather see is something up the middle with the tight end with Bauer Sharp, because obviously that was something that was working for us. I need something up the middle. I don't care if we're more likely to get it picked off. Fucking try. Just try to get these 9 yards. And I think throwing wide receiver screens is just letting the clock run out. I mean, I think that's all that is. I think they were giving up on offense, and that's the problem I have. And also the fact that we haven't made adjustments for shit against any of these guys. I mean, even against teams that are not very good. I think even against the Temple team that I went and saw live, I told you after this Temple game that I wasn't that impressed. To Oklahoma, because I felt like the offensive line didn't play well, and it just seemed like we weren't really making the right calls. And I said there was a lot of behind the line of scrimmage calls that I didn't like, and it just seemed like we weren't able to really push the ball downfield in larger chunks. We weren't able to play chunk offense like we used to be able to under a Lincoln Riley offense that we were, obviously Oklahoma fans were pretty spoiled by, but not able to get anything through the air, really, especially with the fact that we're missing our top 5 wide receivers doesn't help. But like, we should still be able to get a couple of routes out there. I don't care. I think that our backups should still be able to get a couple of completions. I mean, I need to pull up the box score.
I mean, you had a couple guys have some good catches. One of your freshman wide receivers was your leading receiver with like eight catches. I don't know who. I mean,
Michael Holder Jr. went 19 to 30 with an average of 4.9 yards per throw, or per completion.
Yeah, not good. I mean, that's not downfield. I mean, and where are your gadget plays? I mean, if you're down 3 scores, I would at least be running some double reverse passes or something stupid. I mean, like you said, to just show you're trying. Like, it doesn't have to be successful, but when you're down 3 scores and you need something to happen, run a flea flicker or something, for the love of Christ. I mean, like, it's not that hard to get behind something like that. And in the defense of, the situation with, the receivers. Yes, like they technically need blown coverage to get open at some of these times. I mean, it's really bad. I don't think you understand how hard it is for these guys to get open, and unless someone's falling down or slipping or blowing their coverage. It's just not happening. They're not getting enough, and he doesn't have time anyways. That's the thing. He doesn't have time. Doesn't have no time.
Here's my thing. Latrell just needs to get fucking creative. And I think the fact that he hasn't gotten creative proves that he's not the guy to be the OC at Oklahoma. Go be the OC at fucking Oklahoma State if you want, but don't come be the OC at Oklahoma if you're going to show up and not get creative when you don't have your top five receivers. Disguise some fucking shit. Disguise an obvious run. Put 3 tight ends out there and have them fucking
I mean,
flats.
for the love of Christ, put Jackson Arnold back in the game and line Michael Hawkins out there at wide receiver. Throw him the ball and have him throw it again. I mean, or throw it back to Jackson and then throw it again. I mean, do something. You know what I'm saying? Like, even me and you can come up with something creative and stupid to even try to do something to make it look like we're trying. And to be fair, after the Temple game, he did come out and say we were just doing vanilla, like minimal offense. And we kind of talked about that on the pod as well. Is like that's his excuse now, but we'll see how it changes as the season goes on, and I'll give you credit, it hasn't changed, and that's a problem.
The same scheme against Temple that we're running against Texas, we're running the same scheme against Temple that we're running against Tennessee. It doesn't fucking work when those guys are 7 inches taller and 100 pounds heavier.
And to your point as well, when you're saying if you're one-dimensional, you can just sit back and relax, well, that's why your RPOs aren't working, because they know you're not going to run it. So like why even worry about the running back on the RPO? Just worry about the pass option and the quarterback run, and you're good. Because if Javonte Barnes picks up 6 yards on first down, you know what's going to happen? Seth Latrell's going to go right back to him, because it's like it's just the way he works. It's not like, oh, Javonte Barnes 6-yard carry, let's not hand it off to him. We saw it all game long against Texas. Good run by Javonte Barnes or Sawchuk or whoever it was they had back there at the time, and he would just give it right back to him the next play. Now, it wasn't always just a handoff up the middle, but it was the ball back in the same player's hand again, because again, he lives by the rule of if something works once, it's going to work again. And we just don't live in a time, I don't think, where that's the case unless you're playing literally one of the worst teams in college football. You will not be able to do the same thing repeatedly or give the ball to the same person repeatedly without these are humans. This isn't Madden. This isn't college football 25. These aren't digital players that have a set amount of code where it's like, oh, if the ball's passed over here, I just stand here. No, these are human beings that know how to think. They're going to catch on to something. They're going to have hunches. They're going to take risks. They're going to jump a route. And that's what makes the sport human.
Yeah, my problem is that I could call the defense against this OU offense, and I think I'd be successful. I think if you run a 4-4 and just have 2 fucking spies, then you can beat this team.
And we'll see tomorrow. We'll see tomorrow, because you're going up against one of the best defensive fronts in the SEC. So we'll see how that works out for you.
The offense is fucked. I mean, we're gonna have to score on defense. It's that simple.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that wraps it up. That's your recap from Red River Rivalry. Not much of a game this year, but how could it have been considering the circumstances was kind of my point. I don't know if there was much of a chance. The 15-point spread was definitely not covered. Like Zach said early on, you're up 3-0. You end the first quarter feeling pretty good about yourself. You're hanging in there. You've already forced a Quinn Ewers turnover. It was looking like maybe, just maybe. But once that ball rolled into the end zone and was covered by Texas, I think it just kind of showed that the ball was just not going to bounce the way it needed to for the upset to happen. And that kind of moves us on to our quick hits for the NFL. So what I'm going to do, Zach, is I'm going to rattle off these scores for you from this last week. You're going to tell me impressive or not impressive, or big deal, not big deal. And let's do big deal, not big deal. And if it is a big deal, I'll let you expound on it a little bit, okay? You ready? 49ers beat the Seahawks 36-24. Big deal or not big deal? Not a big deal. Texans beat the Patriots 41-21. Big deal or not big deal? I'm gonna push back. Big deal. Drake May looked okay. He looked better than Brisket did. I'll give him that.
It's not a big deal for the game. Big deal for Drake May.
Yeah, it was a big deal for breaking him in. 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, only 13 incompletions. He looked a lot better than what I could have ever have hoped he looked like. I'm gonna be honest, I was not big on him. So yes, it's not a big deal game-wise, but big deal quarterback development-wise. We'll see what he does this week. Bears beat the Jags overseas in London 35-16. Big deal, not big deal?
I'm gonna say kind of a big deal just for the fact of how bad the Jags are.
Yeah, terrible team. Packers beat the Cardinals 34-13. Big deal, not big deal.
Not a big deal.
Colts beat the Titans 20-17. Big deal, not big deal.
One of the worst games I've ever seen.
Big deal though for me. Big deal for me because Joe Flacco gets the W, baby. Joe Flacco with the W in 2024, baby. 2024, Joe Flacco with a win,
Let's
baby.
go, Joe.
Anthony Richardson back this week though, so the Joe Flacco era done on pause for now. But got a win before he got sent back to the
Joe
bench.
Flacco's Super Bowl was 15 years ago, people.
That's how, and he's still out here winning football games. I mean, I would never have bet in a million years.
Let's fucking go.
Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the Saints 51-27. Big deal, not big deal.
Very big deal. Obviously, I'm going to speak on this one. We have two Oklahoma quarterbacks going at it. I don't know if you want to call Spencer Rattler an Oklahoma quarterback. I will call him an Oklahoma quarterback. I was excited for his debut just to see if he was able to get some stuff. I'm not super impressed. I don't think anyone's super impressed by Spencer Rattler at all. But, I was just happy to see him play in the NFL. I wasn't sure if he was ever going to after that Caleb Williams situation. I'm glad that he played and started as a quarterback in an NFL game, and I'm happy that he also did that against Baker Mayfield, which was fun, because if you look back on it, Baker was the quarterback when Spencer Rattler was doing his high school visits, and that was an interesting little dynamic there. But obviously, I'm big on Baker. Baker coming out there, kicking ass. Obviously, he's. I think he should be a candidate for MVP. I think that the Buccaneers are serious. So this was a big deal for me just because of the fact that it's Baker.
All right, yeah, I like that breakdown. Eagles beat the Browns 20-16 on a last-second drive. Big deal, not big deal.
I'm gonna say big deal for bad reasons, and that's just because what the fuck are the Eagles doing?
Yeah, that game was not looking good for them for the longest time. They were actually down 16 to 13 late in that game. So yeah, like you said, kind of concerning there. And boy, is Deshaun Watson continuing to rob the Cleveland Browns of their money. Just bad stuff there all around. So I'll agree, kind of a big deal. Ravens beat the Commanders 30-23. Big deal, not big deal.
Not big deal, honestly. I expect both these teams to be really good this year. So
yeah, I kind of agree. It was a close game. It deserved to be a close game, and both quarterbacks played really well. So again,
Daniel was serious rookie of the year.
Yeah, he's definitely up there for sure. Chargers beat the Broncos 23-16. Big deal, not big deal.
Man, not big deal.
Steelers beat the Raiders 32-13. Big deal, not big deal.
Not a big deal.
Was a big deal for Najee Harris, first 100 rushing yard performance of the season. So big deal for him, but not a big deal.
Good for him.
Yep. Falcons beat the Panthers 38-20. Big deal, not big deal.
Hey, you like that?
Like it.
I
love that. I love that Kirk O'Chain's going down to whooping that ass. No, that was that's what's supposed to happen. Panthers stink.
Yeah, Panthers set, not a big deal.
Bengals beat the Giants 17-7. Big deal, not big deal.
Man, Giants suck.
Bills beat the Jets 23-20. Big deal, not big deal.
I'm gonna say big deal just because it showed that the Jets still got a little bit left in them, and I think obviously this trade for Devontae Adams means that they can be a serious team.
All right, last one before we get to the Thursday night game, which was the Lions beating the Cowboys on the road 47-9 on Jerry Jones's 82nd birthday. Happy birthday, Jerry Jones. Big deal, not big deal.
Obviously a big deal. Not for any reason that I love. If you know anything about me, I hate this weekend with a passion. This last weekend was terrible. Saturday, I get my ass kicked with the OU Texas game. Obviously, Texas beats the shit out of Oklahoma. And then come Sunday, fucking Lions just beat the dog shit out of the Cowboys. I mean, they were doing shit like lining their left tackle or their right tackle and wide out. Dan Campbell really hates the Cowboys. It was kind of fun to watch, honestly. As I don't think that there's at this point, I'm kind of rooting against the Cowboys as a Cowboys fan. It just says I feel like we need to be bad enough. And I said this at work the other day, and I had a lot of people agreeing with me. I think the Cowboys need to tank and just like. I think the players should take the initiative and go 0-16 or 0-17 for 3 years in a row, and force the league to step in and remove Jerry from the equation. They remove the Jones family entirely because I'm at the point that I'm like, I don't think this team can win as long as Jones is at the top. They're too focused on making money instead of fielding a winning football team. And obviously, every owner is concerned with making money, but Jerry's is obviously extra with this shit. Talking about Jerry World. And in fact, I said something that I think that is true, and that's if the normal person, if the casual NFL fan knows who the owner of your team is, that's probably a bad thing. And the fact that Jerry Jones makes himself that known, and the fact that he's the GM and the owner because he's so narcissistic that he's not willing to let anybody else try to field a better team than him, try to field like a win team, it's just sad. Like, he doesn't deserve to win, and I don't think the Cowboys are gonna win for as long as he's alive, for probably as long as Stephen Jones has control. I think they need to sell the team, and I just don't see that happening. I mean, the Cowboys are kind of fucked.
Yeah, I think Jerry needs to run.
They're fucked in a weird way. They're not fucked to go. Oh, and they're not fucked to be a terrible team. They're not fucked to go 1-16. They're not fucked to go 3-14 every year. They're fucked to go 10-7 every year, to 12-5 every year, and then lose in the first round every year.
No, I
And
think
that's what's been happening since 1996.
yeah. I think Jerry
won more than won more than one playoff game in a season since 1996.
Oh my God! Yeah,
We have not made a conference championship since 1996.
Yeah,
if you're keeping up with time, that's almost 30 years ago.
That's true. That's 28 years ago. That's pretty well. It'll be 28 this year. It's 27 currently. It'll be 28 after this season is done. Look, I think Jerry Jones needs to run for president. I think the best way to get Jerry out of here is have him run for president, start holding rallies at court, and sooner or later someone's gonna shoot him. So I mean, like,
has to happen.
So I mean,
I'm not gonna get us taken down off YouTube or anything, but like, what's that thing that 100 Girls game said? That I volunteer.
Oh yeah, I volunteers tribute. I volunteer. I was gonna go with the Selena Kyle from the Dark Knight Rises. How could you think you could be living so large when you left so little for the rest of us? I mean, like, oh, how could you?
I'll do what's necessary.
Yeah, I'm a team guy. You can send all the merch through my the consummary in the prison. Because that's where I'll be going. But the Cowboys won't be bad anymore, so it'll be worth it. But yeah, I think that's kind of the rundown.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, here's the last game. Broncos beat the Saints 33-10. Thursday Night Football. Spencer Rattler's second showing, not as good, but the Broncos defense a lot better than the last defense they played. Big deal, not big deal.
Man, not big deal.
Not big deal. Bo Nix looked okay. It was really about the defense in the run game, which Williams had 14 carries, 88 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So anyways, that's your NFL quick hits. That's how we're gonna do them from now on. I think that's just kind of a faster way to do it. I know we kind of ran a little long with the Red River thing, but it needed to be said. Yeah,
this is one of those games that's monumental for the college football season. I mean, I think it solidified Texas as obviously the best team in the country.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that leads us to the sports book, baby. It's time to get it. Yeah, it was a real bad weekend. I think Zach took more rounds in the behind than most people in prison over the weekends. It was not good, but I kind of joined him a little. I kind of enjoyed it a little bit. Let's
Five.
let's let's go with Zach's picks. We're gonna start with him. He had Oklahoma plus the 15.5 as one of his locks going into Red River. That one was obviously a loss, so 0-1 there. Missouri minus the 27 against UMass. That one hit, so he's 1-1 on his locks over the weekend with Missouri getting that win. So he has 15 cents from there. The under for Mississippi State and Georgia, that one definitely didn't hit as the teams combined for 72 points. That one's a big L there. Ohio State, Oregon, the over 54, that one hits. There's your other 10 cents right there. With the over-under being 54, that one ended up with a 63, so easy win there. He had Colorado money line. That one was so close, couldn't get it done. And then Penn State minus 3.5 was the bad beat as it took overtime, but Penn State got the win by 3 points. So he has 25 cents. So Zach, for the first time ever, we're gonna have only 2 games from somebody being picked. But Zach's just he's gonna go all in on one. Okay, I like it. All in on one. You heard it here first. It's one pick for Zach. He's going all in, baby. Don't miss it. We'll have it for you next. Here's my slip. I had the over 49 points for Texas, Oklahoma. Very disappointed there. Total was 37. I missed out on that one. I took the UMass plus 27. I'm an idiot. Not even close. Had a shot early. Never got any ground. Never put any pressure on him. No chance. Missouri won that one by 40 plus. Mississippi State plus the 34. Great pick on my end. I saw it coming, baby. Jeff Lebby wakes up and they put up 31 and only lose by 10. Great cover by Mississippi State. No sweat lock. It wasn't a lock, but it could have been. My first lock of the week, though, was Oregon money line. We survived, baby. 6 seconds to go. That 6 seconds will go down in infamy. Big W's there. 1-0 on the locks with that one. Under 55.5 for the total in the Kansas State-Colorado game. Couldn't get that one done. As Kansas State and Colorado combined for 59 points. So just out of the realm there. Just needed one less touchdown. Couldn't get it. And then my last one was Penn State money line because I hate Lincoln Riley. And thank goodness they pulled it out in OT. Had to come back massively. Tyler Warren's a monster. And so I have 70 cents to work with heading into the week. So I've got my work cut out for me. Let's go ahead and I'll go with my first game. Since I've got the longer list to go through here. First game of the weekend. Hard to stay away from this one. I'm going Texas and Georgia to start this one out. The line right here is Texas minus 5 over under 57.5. Give me Georgia plus the 5. Give me Georgia plus the 5. I like the Bulldogs here. Bye-bye. I mean, you know what? Fuck it. I'm taking Georgia money line. Give me Georgia money line. I think it happens this weekend. Carson Beck ends Texas's perfect season this weekend in Austin, and the Bulldogs bounce back from a almost scary loss at Mississippi State. That's my first game. Do you want to go now? Or you want to go last?
I'll go last.
Okay. He's gonna go last. So I got, like I said, I got Georgia money line as my first one.
The same game. No.
Okay, perfect. My second game that I'm going with is Oregon State playing UNLV. Give me the Beavers plus the 6.5. I like it. They're going with their all orange uniforms. It's a late game out there in Corvallis. UNLV's been playing well. I just think 6.5 might be too big of a line. I'm not picking Oregon State money line, but I am picking them to cover the 6.5. Give me the Beavers to do that. Third game that I'm going with is Vanderbilt and Ball State. Vanderbilt's a 27-point favorite at home against the Cardinal. I like Vanderbilt a lot, and I think they'll probably get it done here, but I'm going with the over 57. Over 57 for Ball State and Vanderbilt. Over 57 as my third game. Fourth game coming up. This is a lock. Fourth game, lock of the week here for you folks. Don't want to miss it here. It is USC minus the 7.5 against Maryland. Maryland's terrible. I know they're the home team. Give me USC to cover the 7.5 after losing a soul crusher at home to Penn State. I think they bounce back, unfortunately, and get the job done. It's my lock of the week. USC minus 7.5. Fifth game. Fifth game coming up here. This one's also a big one. Don't want to miss out. It's Tennessee, Alabama. Give me Alabama minus 3 on the road. I like it. Tennessee's been on a downswing. I don't think they have a chance this weekend of getting out of the slump they're in. I think they're on this trajectory of continuing to go down until they lose one, and this is going to be it right here as Alabama gets the win on the road. Alabama minus 3. They cover it as well. And my last one, my last game of the week here, it's a dandy. I think everyone's going to enjoy watching this game. I think it's going to be one of those games that, is kind of flying under the radar, but has the potential to be one of those closer nip and tuck kind of games. And that is Arizona and Colorado. That is my last game of my sheet here, and it is also another lock. I am locking in the Colorado plus 2.5 on the road against Arizona. I like where they're at. I think they played Kansas State close enough for me to feel good about where they're at, and Arizona's been playing bad enough to make me feel like Colorado could pull this off. So those are my 6 games. My 2 locks are Colorado plus the 2.5, and my other lock is what was it? Fuck me. It was Georgia plus 5. Georgia plus the 5 is my other lock of the week. Zach, what is your singular 25-cent game of the week? He's putting it all in. All the chips are on the table. Who is the lucky winner?
All right. Listen, this is playing it safe. Just because I want to make sure that I have something to play with.
Lock of the week right here. Oh, lock of the year. Lock of the year right here.
It's exciting. The money line is at minus 145. Kansas State money line against West Virginia, baby.
Kansas State money line against West Virginia is the lock of the year right now for Zach Huffman. That's right. Lock of the year, Kansas State.
Listen, they're only 2.5 point favorites. They are only 2.5 point favorites, but that's only because they're playing in Morgantown.
Hey, 25 cents will win you 41 back, so that'll spread it out to where you can pick 4 games next week. So this is big for you. I like the pick. Kansas State money line, folks. Get on it. Jump on it now. And that'll do it for the sports book, folks. We got it done. Any final thoughts before we get out of here on episode 82, my friend?
And go Cats.
Oh yeah,
go Wildcats, man. I need them to come out there and do something.
Yeah, go Cats is right. We'll score update before we get out of here. Oregon up on Purdue 21-0, almost at the half, and then Florida is losing to Duke right now 20-13. 6 minutes to go in the third. No surprises there. Other games going on tonight. This is a Friday, by the way. Oklahoma State BYU kicking off in about an hour, and Fresno State and Nevada in about an hour 15 minutes are your last 2 of your Friday. Enjoy your weekend, folks. Win some money and tail Zach, because I think that's a really good pick. Really good pick. Lock of the year. Kansas State over West Virginia.
If you've been tailing me, I'm so sorry.
No way he loses this one, folks. No way.
If you've been tailing me, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, hey, you haven't lost all your money though. You're still hanging on. He's still giving you.
My locks aren't bad. Locks aren't bad.
Yeah, your locks aren't bad, but yeah, if you're following the locks, we're doing okay. Appreciate you joining me this weekend. I'll be praying for you tomorrow while I'm in the stands in Norman.
Pray for the Cats.
I'm praying for the Cats. That's right. Praying for Kansas State to do what they're supposed to do. I think they've got a good shot at doing that. When does that game kick off, Zach? Is that an afternoon game?
It's a night game.
Oh, it is 6:30, 7:30 Eastern. So I will definitely be home to partake in rooting for the Purple Cats with you. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you being here. And for all of us here at St0ner Sports Radio, keep stick on the ice. Good night, America.